This is like the bowling cup game for Gen Xers. It's definitely in there. Do you like the way I didn't answer your question?
Ooh, something went by.
I got it.
Oh, I'm so scared you're gonna lose it.
All right, Ray. Now
you gotta use centrifugal force.
Yep.
Hey! That was the episode.
Hey, before we get started, I just want to mention when the video starts, it's going to sound like Brian and Jordan are learning about a guitar technique. That's not accurate. They do that in an upcoming video. They talk about storytelling techniques. They talk about music structure. So just calibrate your expectations accordingly. Second thing I want to mention is we don't have a sponsor for this video. So I just want to let you know that we have Modern Row shirts. You can find the link in the description. I modeled this shirt 8 years ago. Which has aged best, my shirt or me? Please say me. All right, have fun.
Dr. Jordan Breeding, welcome back. 20 years ago, I did not set out to be good at guitar. I set out to be good enough to impress my children and my wife. And for a brief moment, I did. I believe I could play Flash by Queen.
Oh, okay.
Would it be a violation of copyright?
It can be. It depends on how well you play it right now.
Well, first of all, I don't even know if this is tuned. Okay,
it's not, so you probably won't get flagged.
Is that a trick that you can do?
I mean, so when we make videos, a lot of times when we are using too long of a clip for audio, we'll just...
by the way, everybody go to Dr. Jordan Breeding's site.
Yeah, we use a lot of detune. Well, I do have a site. I have a YouTube channel, but we do detune things. And I haven't gotten flagged yet, so...
If this is G, and I don't know that it is, then...
It shouldn't be. If it was tuned correctly, it wouldn't be.
Wait, E. So... Okay.
Close. But there's electronics working right there. Is that a tuner?
Oh. It is. No, it says
you're
sharp.
You're sharp. You're right, I'm sorry.
It's telling me to go down.
Correct.
Okay, so this should be lower.
Yeah, oh. Do you want me to just do it? I
do, actually. Okay. The audience is screaming for it.
Okay, I'll try and do it real quick.
Is this a real thing or no? The fact that these strings have not been replaced in over a decade, does that make it more reliable? Oh. Okay, you realize what you're doing. You're putting a mocking grin as you play the thing that I'm about to learn how to do.
Oh, well, okay.
I wrote a song about it. It goes...
Hey. That's not bad. That's better than I would have thought based on how long it took you to do.
And then, I think
That's a cool one. What is that?
That's plush.
Okay. The thing that I was going to show you,
please,
in the thing that you might be interested in, and a beginner guitarist might be interested in, is to figure out, so there's this thing called the caged system, and that doesn't mean anything other than it's C-A-G-E-D. And so if you know what the shapes of those chords are, C, G, oh my gosh, I'm spelling it wrong. C, A, G, E, D. And then there are minor versions of that, like A minor and E minor and D minor.
Minor in general is just like a sour...
The way that chords are usually set up is it's like 1, 3, 5. And so what that means is in your previous episode, which you can watch on YouTube at Brian's website, if this is your note, C, you go in scale, that's 2. So C is 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5. So now that makes what you think of as a normal chord.
Yes.
But to make it minor, you bring this down usually, so now it's... So you take that third one, which is also your second note.
Right.
And you just go down 1 fret.
Got it.
So like in a D, this is your root, and this is what makes it weird too. This is your root, this is actually the 5th note, this is the 1st note again, then this is the 3rd note. And if you wanted to do that, because this is your 3rd note, you sour it.
And
now it's sad.
Do we know why that tickles sadness in human brains? Because like at the core level, I understand octaves where it's like you've got the shape of one wave, and then you just double it up, and they fit very neatly, and we like things that are self-repeating. Professor Michael Starbird was one of my thesis advisors at UT, and he does high-level mathematics, and he talks about how you can take a very simple thing and with a self-repeating pattern make it beautiful. Let's take something boring like a square, right? Now let's take a very simple rule. Where there's a corner, put another square. So you do that once, and now it's a little bit more interesting. And now we're gonna apply the same rule. Where there's a corner, we're gonna put another square. And then you keep doing it, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, that's interesting. Now it's very simple, this self-repeating square on square on square thing, but it's vaguely reminiscent of a snowflake or something. But then humans like, as best I understand, they like being almost right. If we see 1 and 2, all of our brains instantly try to figure out 3. Now, if we're right, we're disappointed because we call it predictable. You know, or if it's video games, it's an on-rails experience. But we don't like to be totally wrong because then it's nonsensical.
I agree. So I took a songwriting course in college, a couple of them, and one of the things that they were talking about is they want to know what's coming. They want to be mostly right. To your point, where it's like, if it cuts out, they're expecting it to come back very strongly at another point. And you can either do that, which they'll find enjoyable, or you can do the complete opposite of that. And either way, because their brain, sometimes you give them exactly what they think they want, and that makes them feel good, and sometimes you give them the exact opposite, and that lack of expectation. There's a song, I don't know why this is the song that comes to mind, but it's, do you know the band Dashboard Confessional?
I know of them.
Yeah, they did a song specifically for Spider-Man 2, I think, called Vindicated. They build up to this last chorus, and then they should hit on 1, but nobody else hits, just the drummer, and then they come in on 2, which is, it's not mind-blowing. You can understand it very simply. But you feel like, like you just feel this like rush of
vertigo. This is in marketing talk. We call it the third gravitational body. And the idea is if you take 2 planets and you kick them, 2 gravitational bodies, it's pure Newtonian physics. You can mathematically figure out 17 billion years in the future, I can tell you exactly where those 2 planets are gonna be. But you take a baseball and you just kind of chuck that in there, all of a sudden, the effects of quantum mechanics eventually make it to where 5, 10 years out, you can't predict nothing. Humans love that little bit of spice, that little bit of that almost being right, which is why I'm just now, at the tender age of half a freaking century, beginning to understand the structure of like the verse, chorus, verse, all of that stuff. Like for example, hit a chord, right? And you can tell me if I'm getting this right. So that is G, right? So that is a simple chord of everything. If we're looking at it at a harmonic level, it's going to be neat. All the way down, right? Okay, and so that is inherently a resonant, pleasant thing that even if my conscious verbal Broca's area, talking area can't verbalize it, I know that is a good chord. I understand it. Now hit me with another chord, right? Okay, and I'm like, this is a different thing, but it is also pleasant, balanced, and harmonic. Now do whatever a musical thing you would do now is.
Well, I mean, you could go a lot of different ways with it, but...
Okay, so now I have 3 things, and I'm like, is that what we're doing? You're just showing me a series of complete snowflakes, and what is this, a lineup? Am I looking at mugshots? So what do I want? I want to return to a place of comfort, at which point, all of that experience becomes one unit of a new thing that I understand. And I'm not sure, like, is this the first mugshot? So what do you hit me with? The exact same thing again, right?
Okay,
right?
This is so interesting because it's like, it's sort of like my songwriting professor, but I don't trust that he knows what he's talking about.
That's exactly what's happening.
Which is fascinating. It's fun to approach it from something else where I'm like, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm literally talking from a marketing brain perspective. I'm about to sell you lock picks.
It's just funny because I mentioned earlier reading the 3-body problem, which is about that, or is about the problem of you can never predict 3 bodies for some reason.
The example that I learned in college was picture 3 magnets, 1 red, 1 yellow, 1 blue, right? And then picture a single pendulum right now in the middle, right? If I let go of this Ferris pendulum over the blue one, it's just gonna stay on blue, right? But if I overdo it on blue, it's going to go woo, woo, woo. You don't know where it's going to end up. It gets captured by yellow, right? And then if I held it over yellow, it's going to stay on yellow. But you do like a 64, an 8x8 grid, right?
Yeah.
Definitely this one will be blue. Definitely this one will be red. Definitely this one will be yellow. And outside of that, it's kind of random where it is. But then you refine it to, let's do 16 by 16. And then you see there's a blue zone and a red zone and a yellow zone.
Yeah.
But then we refine it to 128 by 128. And eventually you get this highly detailed, you see bands where it's like, here it's blue. Then there's a band of red where it's always going to end up on red. Then there's a band of yellow. What we think of as chaos is basically an inability to measure precisely enough. And at some point you get all the way down to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle where it is literally unmeasurable and it is truly chaotic.
Yeah.
So anyway, music. My point being is like we dig that chaos and we dig those self-similar patterns. You get the verse, and then we want often to hear the verse again.
Right.
And we don't want to hear the verse a third time. And then we get to the bridge, right?
Right, and the bridge is when it would all change, so that it's a whole new sort of palate cleanser, so that when you come back to the chorus, you feel good about it again.
So think of Sugar Ray's Fly.
Yes,
Where
okay.
Spread your wing and fly, and then it's like, all around the world, statues crumble for me. Like, I don't know what that has to do with anything. and then they bring it on back because we like to lose our footing and collapse the superposition back.
Well, and the way that our songwriting professor would talk about it as well, which, by the way, his name's Ojo Taylor. He was in one of the first, if not the first, successful Christian hardcore punk bands of all time.
Really? What do you remember
Now
the
he's a
name of
devout
it?
atheist, but it was called Undercover.
Okay.
And their big song is called God Rules. And it's just, God rules, God rules. It's
Kick
like Men in
off
Hell.
the Sunday shoes.
That's a little bit what it sounded like. And so every time he would come into class, somebody would play it, and he'd be like, turn that off. He's like, I'm not ashamed of it, but also it's very annoying that you do this every time I come in. Anyway, this wasn't necessarily what I thought we were going to talk about, but we could talk about this as well. I keep saying 3s and 5s and 1s and stuff.
Yeah.
And you said octave, which is the exact same note. That would be like this, which you could tell that they're different, but they're identical. The only difference is how high it is.
Right.
He was saying that in the same way that there's a different note for each number in a scale, there's a different chord for each number in the scale as well. And they all have their different flavor and whatever. And what he would say is there are certain chords that if you play it, it cannot end the phrase, like the thing that you're talking about. So if you're playing...
One unit of an expression.
Yeah, so if you're playing, I guess, just any sort of song where it's like 1, 4, 6, and then 5, you can tell it's about to end, or about to go back. But if you go 6, and then you go to this, like that resolution doesn't feel as clean because you went to the 2, and that doesn't want to go there. You still want to go from the 2 back to the 5 to the 1. Things like that, where it's like, what's interesting about music is that there's clearly like some sort of intuitive science to it, that we all sort of agree things feel uncomfortable.
Or they feel right.
Or they feel right.
And there's a threshold at which point, we'll say almost, in general, humans just perceive it as, that's just noise. That's not a thing. Guys, I don't know that we're going to learn anything about guitars.
Which is fine,
but
this is your website.
So, okay, that's it. That just happened. What happened is in comedy, right? You establish a pattern and then you make a callback, which is also the same thing in magic. This is in the letter that Teller wrote. He said, here's a compositional secret that is so obvious you'll say, this man is bullshitting me. I am not. It is this simple. Surprise me. Put 2 and 2 in front of me, convince me it's 5, then reveal the truth 4. Now, and he goes on to in more detail, but the part that stuck with me is the reason it's satisfying, it's not the same as me saying 5. It's 5, it's 5. Just kidding, it's 4. Right. That's bad storytelling, like we were talking about in certain Star Wars extensions, right? What's good is like, here's 2 and 2, that's 5. Is it? here's 2 and 2, that's 5. Yeah, I guess it is. Here's 2 and 2, it's 5. It definitely is. Here's 2 and 2, it was 4 the whole time. I knew it, I knew it.
Yeah.
Humans love that stuff.
Right. Well, and also, you know, the hero's journey kind of thing where, or even Harmon's story circle, the key component of any of these story structures that you would find in most Hollywood productions or sitcoms or anything like that is inevitably you always return to where you began.
Right, but
changed.
Right,
changed.
Right.
So one of the things about a song, generally speaking, almost every pop song, it's doing that thing you're talking about. It's like there's a verse, then there's the chorus, which is kind of your main thing.
Right.
Then there's another verse to kind of get away from it. Then you go back to then you do the most different possible thing, which is that bridge, and then you return to the chorus. And depending on the music or the band, that's where you've brought all the elements back. It's the biggest version. It's as familiar as it's going to be, but it's more satisfying because you know it as well as you're ever going to know it now.
So follow me on this thread. But the example that pops to mind is if you do it right. In the Campbellian monomyth, you have a protagonist who is just a thinly veiled structure for the reader to project themselves onto, who wants something, and because they want something, they get close to it, they decide reasons that they shouldn't go for it, they end up...
Then they do decide,
That's the inciting incident. Then a bunch of things happen, they meet an old wizard, they meet the goddess, they pay a terrible price, and then they come back changed, right? So likewise, in music, it makes me think of weird thing. Back in the 90s, you could actually do theater arts, and a thing you could compete with was lip syncing, right? And so somebody did a very, and this is a 17-year-old girl who I saw, she did Winds of Change,
Okay.
You know that one?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I'm sorry.
But it starts off with this quiet whistling moment. She walks out into the spotlight, you know, pretending to smoke a cigarette or whatever, and you could just suddenly feel this is a quiet moment or whatever. And then the song, you know, gets big and operatic or whatever. And then the song collapses and, you know, she got big and operatic. And then everything collapsed back down to this quiet moment of being in a cigarette. And it was the exact same phrase. It was the exact same thing. But within the new context of somebody who's amazed by all the things that they've seen, and now we return back where we are. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, a changed person, right? So likewise, and this is a very trivial iteration of the exact same thing, because as best I can tell, things that humans like tend to be true at all scales, right? All the way down to a YouTube short, of all things.
Right.
There's nothing I love more than when somebody says the perfect loop doesn't exist, right? That is the highest of compliments, and I do know that is a cheap trick that a lot of people can use. But if it works because the spellcraft of the narrative allowed you to start off the first 5 to 7 seconds are an audition, a self-contained unit, a single chord, right? It is a gift, as I think of it. You begin with a gift. And then if you give enough of a gift, you're like, all right, what else you got? And then you get caught up in it. And if you get all the way caught up in it, you don't notice, you're not looking at that bar, and narratively, you get all the way to that end, like, what, are you gonna hit next now? No, you wanna hear brang, that beginning again.
I agree, and I would actually say even a step beyond that, you are wanting to watch it again because you have already agreed that it's worth watching. What is the one that was really...
It's called Star Wars.
The perfect loop works really well because you're right, you get back to the beginning and you're satisfied because of the journey, but also you want to take that journey again immediately.
Right.
And so even though you probably have recognized that you've already seen this, that's okay because you're also thinking, I know I've seen this, but I think I've missed things, and I want to watch it again and again and again in rapid succession.
Well, and then if you do it really well, then you want to experience it again through somebody else's eyes. And I mentioned Star Wars because I was thinking about, you know, our generation and older. We all had that worn out VHS because we knew that every time we would watch Star Wars, like this time I'm just going to pay attention to that tentacle on the guy in the background. But it does stand up to increased depth. There's also something to think about stage shows, and when I was on tour for 20 plus years in the college market, there was this wonderful Groundhog Day-like existence where every audience was, I thought of them as a hostile audience. I mean, they didn't actually hate me, but they're students who are there because they have nothing going on a Wednesday night. It's on me to win them over, right?
Right.
And so I would, again, narratively, I would try to begin with a gift, within the fire eating routine, if I did it right, I would not even have an introduction. And instead, I would present as though I was a tech setting everything up. And then, light a torch, okay, and put it out. And then, wait, did he just put that out with his hand? Or it was still chattering in there?
Yeah.
And then finally, enough thing, and I'm pretending like I'm not noticing what's happening, but, I'm giving gift of interesting things happening, and there's quietly a story evolving. And then when I noticed there was enough eyeballs on me, I would make what I think of as my first harvest, right? And I would light it, and I would start twirling, still giving a performance, and then my body posture would change, and I'd look out, and I'd notice the first row would get quiet, and then I would just go, shh, and like a wave, and it's like that. Now that's it. That's a self-contained unit. It's like, now what? And then, as though it's the reason that you're here, I would say the concept of resistance to fire, and then, constantly teasing away from everyone's expectations until finally you get to one unit of fire eating, and then it's like, okay, well now what? And then it's like continue on with another gift, and then my first harvest where I'm like, 10 minutes ago you didn't know me from Adam. Now I'm going to ask you to play pretend like I'm a kid doing this theatrical conceit of cutting off my tongue. And then finally, everything builds up so that an hour into it, the whole reason I did this hour show is for one moment where I'm like, hey, if you've had a good time, could you stand up and clap when I get out of this weird sweater? And then I would escape from a straitjacket. But that self-similar pattern, that having a pattern and then breaking it constantly, once you see it everywhere.
Yeah, actually, I was just listening on the plane right here. I mean, I'm not here. I'm on a green screen. Yeah, on the plane right here. Yeah, the plane right here. I was listening to an improv podcast, and they were saying a beginner improviser who is pretty good will recognize that you're doing a scene, and they will quickly realize they're the angry guy. And the rest of the team will probably pop out and be like, we found your dog. And you would have to, as angry guy, always be like, well, that upsets me, because they get everywhere. They would keep doing that, and they would keep doing that. And it's very, very funny to the audience, because they love that consistency. They love knowing what's coming next. But once you do it about 4 or 5 times, they get it. And they're ahead of you now.
Right.
So what you do is then you start talking about how to play guitar, or you start talking about something else, and then they start to go, that's kind of interesting, because I thought he was angry guy, I kind of miss angry guy, and then something else happens, and unrelatedly, and you're pissed about that, and they're like, yeah, it's back.
Yeah.
I think a lot of good storytelling, good art is setting expectations, helping them understand what they are, and then getting away from it for a while until they miss it.
Right.
And they want it resolved.
And if you do it right, you resolve it before they even know why they were uncomfortable.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's that you have to cast that spell so that you can pull the rug out from underneath them. Where can people see more of your stuff, George?
Is that it? We didn't teach
No, I think that's it. I think we did the thing where everybody was like, no, they're not gonna. Yes, we did.
Well, you can find my stuff at Dr. Jordan Breeding on YouTube. If you search that, you'll find it. I also have a site, but there's not much there.
Yeah.
There's client work if you want to see videos I've made for the Postal Service.
And patreon.com/
Dr. Jordan Breeding, I think.
Yeah. You should probably know that.
I don't know. Go there too.
We'll learn guitar next time.
Yeah.
This video is supported in part by viewers like you over at patreon.com/modernrogue, where we just posted a first pass edit of our recent hat video and an interview with the guest from that video. Check it out.
You're just gonna tune this whole freaking guitar with your thumb right now.
Wait, am I doing it wrong?
No, it feels slow and painful, but if it's working.
This isn't. Now you know what everybody who has one field of expertise feels
I'm not
when
even
they watch an episode of this
Yeah.
program. Because I went through the same thing. The cognitive dissonance of everybody would howl in the comments, and I'm like, guys, that's the whole point, is we're beginning. That's what we're doing on this channel. And then they're like, it's physical torture. This is a violation of the Geneva Convention. And I'm like, I don't understand. And then I listened to one episode of Stuff You Should Know where the topic was fire breathing. And suddenly I was that guy. I wrote a 4-page email, and I was like, what are you doing, Brian?
Yeah. That's your whole thing.
Thank you for your service, Josh and Clark.
Yeah.
And then I wiped it.